A Confucian proverb can be used to argue for the need to develop 21st century skills in learners. If you give a person a fish, he eats for one day. If you teach that person to fish, he can eat for the rest of his life. Performance-based assessments and evaluations are a pedagogical approach that can develop 21st century skills in learners. This midterm will discuss several performance-based assessments and evaluation topics we have explored over the first half of the course. The topics that will be addressed include assessments, evaluations, learning goals, objectives, Bloom's taxonomy, Gagne's 5 domains, and rubrics.
Our current educational system uses multiple choice style assessments to evaluate students. The current system is focused on memorization and filling in a bubble, yet it doesn't teach the student how to apply and use what they have learned in a meaningful way. Our goal as educators should be to prepare students for life beyond the classroom. An alternative method for evaluating students is through a performance-based assessment. When students move beyond the classroom, completing a multiple choice test will not be a beneficial skill. A successful individual will adapt their knowledge and use it in a meaningful way that adds value to society. Utilizing performance-based assessments and evaluations will help build 21st century skills and prepare students for success beyond the classroom. In the first chapter of Performance-Based Assessments for 21st Century Skills, Stanley argues that using PBAs will develop 21st century skills that will prepare students for the world beyond the realm of education. These skills include public speaking, problem solving, collaboration, critical thinking, information literacy, creativity, adaptability, and self-direction. Both assessments and evaluations will have clear criteria in the form of goals and objectives. They both will measure performance and learning. However, there are differences between the two. Assessments are an ongoing, systematic process that documents the levels of performance of an individual. Assessments provide feedback on performance and ways to enhance performance in the future. An evaluation gauges a final product to determine if the goals and objectives are met. An evaluation is a summative judgment on the quality of a product.
If we consider the added concept of instructional design, we can easily see where assessment and evaluation are used in the process of instructional design. Often, assessments occur at the beginning of training to help the educator analyze the learner's prior knowledge and experience. Educators can use the information gained through that initial assessment to determine learning needs and then design and develop educational strategies. According to RIA, ongoing assessments can also occur throughout training and provide data to help the instructor analyze, adapt, and adjust the teaching methods and instructional strategies. Assessments also provide feedback for the learner that will foster trust and communication, which improves learning outcomes. Summative evaluations are used to measure student knowledge, belief, and behavior. They are used to determine if the student has met the objectives. Evaluations can also provide instructors with valuable information about future course design and development. Learning goals and learning objectives are both used to define the desired results of a course. Instructional designers can use backward design to align learning goals, learning objectives, assessments, and evaluations. Learning goals provide a global description of what you want students to know and understand. Goals are often vague and reflect an essential question for the course. According to Aceto, learning objectives describe what learners will be able to do upon completion of training. An objective should be associated with a course goal, use action verbs, be measurable, be observable, and target a specific aspect of student performance. Learning goals provide a global overview of what you want the learners to achieve. Learning goals are essential when designing a course. They identify the skills or knowledge you want the learners to acquire and should be broad but not measurable. Learning objectives provide the pathway towards achieving the learning goal. Learning objectives are measurable and specific. Verbs from Bloom's taxonomy are often used to create the learning objectives. There will usually be several objectives that support one learning goal. Problem-based assessment and evaluation can measure mastery of multiple objectives and concepts at one time. Multiple choice is only able to assess one objective at a time. By integrating several objectives, the problem-based assessment becomes a more realistic reflection of the real world. Another advantage of problem-based assessment is the opportunities for instructional feedback. On multiple choice assessments, students will either get problems correct or incorrect. There isn't much room for feedback or discussion. However, problem-based assessments are wonderful opportunities to individualize instruction and provide feedback. Providing feedback to the students allows them to identify strengths and areas for growth, providing learners with additional information that might clarify misunderstandings and can result in improved outcomes. A disadvantage of using a PBA is that it can become subjective. Stanley points out that the key to a successful problem-based assessment avoids this subjectivity by utilizing a well-written rubric that aligns with the objectives and goals of the lesson. Another disadvantage of a PBA is that it can be time-consuming to provide instructional feedback. However, the impact that instructional feedback provides the learner is a powerful tool. As educators, we should think of this as a time well spent. Bloom's taxonomy is a multi-tiered model used to create learning objectives and scaffold student learning. There are 6 domains within Bloom's taxonomy. Those domains are remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. According to Shabatura, it is good practice to use one verb from Bloom's taxonomy to ensure that the objective is measurable, clear, and concise. As we scaffold the objectives in a lesson, the action verbs build upon each other to help the learner achieve a higher order of thinking skills. Here is an example of scaffolded objectives using Bloom taxonomy. Objective 1. By the end of the lesson, the student will recite steps of meiosis. Objective 2. By the end of the lesson, the student will diagram the steps of meiosis. Objective 3. By the end of the lesson, the student will determine which steps of meiosis contribute to genetic diversity. In this example, the students began at the lower order cognitive level of remembering. On our second objective, they moved up to analyze. Finally, in the third objective, they achieved the level of evaluation. Whereas Bloom's taxonomy focuses on cognitive outcomes at each level of complexity, Gagne identified the 5 domains of learning that affect the learning process. The first one are motor skills, which requires repetitive practice, verbal information, which includes factual knowledge, intellectual skills, which is the ability to elaborate on intellectual skills, cognitive strategies, which allows the learner to internally organize skills that control learning behaviors, remembering and thinking, and then attitudes, which is considered to be an affective domain and is not learned by practice. Some examples of these are performing a dissection of an earthworm, recalling the order of scientific classification, using a dichotomous key to determine the genus and species of an organism, a student creating note cards to identify different phyla of classification, and if a student has a positive attitude or interest in science, they will then attend class regularly. A rubric is used to assess mastery on performance-based tasks. A rubric will provide guidance and demonstrate what a learner should do to succeed on a performance-based assessment. It can act as a guide for how their performance will be graded. A rubric is only as good as it is written, and it only measures what is included on it. Therefore, only elements that are included on a rubric can be evaluated. Throughout a course, formative assessments should help the student gain the skills they need to meet the objectives that will be assessed on the summative evaluation. Rubrics, such as a single-point analytical rubric, can be used to measure learning throughout the learning experience. Single-point rubrics are reasonably fast rubrics to develop. However, this type of rubric provides opportunities for feedback and can be time-consuming to grade. The teacher will need to write notes on the rubric praising advanced achievement or providing constructive feedback. Formative rubrics can enrich the learning experience by enabling the learners to receive feedback as they prepare for high-stakes cumulative or summative assessments. A holistic rubric is more suited as a summative evaluation of a performance-based assessment, as it assigns an overall score to a project. Summative evaluations occur at the end of a learning experience, and they are typically high stakes. This comprehensive approach allows the evaluator to focus on the student's performance rather than on an overly detailed rubric. This exploration of problem-based assessment and evaluation has helped me understand how to implement PBAs in a course and evaluate performance with formative and summative rubrics.